Have you ever felt like your classroom is more organized chaos than a place of learning? Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. The secret to turning that classroom chaos into a well-oiled machine lies in those classroom routines and procedures. Trust me, those are important in order to have a successful, well-running classroom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm April, an elementary teacher passionate about making learning fun and effective. We are going to talk today about classroom management and how to create those effective routines and procedures. If you've missed the first few videos in this series, I highly encourage you to go back and watch those and stay tuned for more videos that will be continuing after this one. So grab your favorite beverage, get a notebook and pen if you want, sit on back and let's dive in. Routines and procedures are the backbone to an effective classroom. They help streamline those activities, minimize distractions and disruptions, and create a very structured environment where students can really start to thrive. Today, I'm going to guide you through some steps on how to design, teach, adjust, and maintain these essential classroom routines. Did you hear that firework? Yikes. First up, let's talk about designing those daily routines and procedures. Start by outlining the key activities that happen throughout your day. What happens at arrival? How are you transitioning between subjects? How are you implementing group work and independent work? How are you handling the wrap-up and dismissal of the day? Once you have a clear picture of all of those elements throughout your day, then you can break down these activities into step-by-step routines. This structure provides predictability, which is crucial for students' sense of security and success. When they know what the expectations are and the routines and procedures to follow, it just becomes easier as the school year goes on. So let's take a few minutes and we're going to think about what are these specific activities. Okay, so we're going to jot down these things. So one of the things I said is the arrival of the day. So when I'm thinking about my arrival in the morning, where are the students going to put their materials and belongings? How are they making a lunch choice for the day? What do they do when they come into the classroom? They shouldn't be up roaming around the classroom. That's not effective use of classroom time. So while we're waiting for our morning announcements, they have specific routines and procedures that they're going to complete. Now, having said this, that doesn't mean that they don't have to be reminded of these things, but that's something that you need to set up from day one. Okay, so after I think about arrival, then I want to think about maybe some transition times for our schedule throughout the day. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to transition from our morning announcements for the whole school to our morning meeting. Okay, so I want to think about how are they going to transition from that activity to the next one. Okay, so then I want to think about transitions there, and then from our morning meeting, depending on how the rest of our day is structured by our building schedule. So the next part we are going to have is maybe some ELA time. And so what specifically are we doing during that time? Again, the more you make it consistent, the easier it is for the kids to just get up and do what's expected. Okay, so then let's say I have specials next. And so we have to think about, okay, we have a specific time that we have to be at specials. So then when we clean up our activity or whatever we're working on, getting ready to transition to specials, what are the routines and procedures that they need to follow for that? I want my classroom to be clean and clutter-free. I want the whole classroom to be cleaned up. I will not call students or table groups if I see messes. They know that they need to clean that up. Okay? How are their lining up procedures? What must they do in order to follow those procedures for lining up? Again, we're not going to just let them line up, however, because then they're not going to follow those expectations ever. Okay, so let's say I've dropped them off at specials, doing my work, coming back to pick them up from specials, or even before we go to specials, you want to think about those hallway routines and procedures. So when they are practicing those in the first few days of school, you want to maintain consistency and hold those high expectations. So going over those hallway procedures and expectations gets them on the right track to success. Okay, so I'm going to say hallway procedures. Okay, then let's say after specials, we're transitioning and we're going right into our next chunk of time. Let's say that's our math block. Okay, so what are they doing when they first come into math? Again, making sure that you are following those routines and procedures from the very first day. It makes everything else run much more smoothly. Okay, so then we have math, then let's say we're transitioning after math and we're going into a longer ELA block. Okay, maybe I give them a little bit of a break in there. Maybe they need some time to decompress after math. That's a long time to be working and thinking. Okay, so maybe we have a little snack time. We do have that in my school for the students who have a very late lunch. And then we're going to transition to our ELA block. Okay, let's say we've done that. We go through our transitions during that time. We're getting ready for lunch and recess. What do those transitions look like? I'm going to break that down. What are the procedures for each of those? And then continuing on throughout the rest of the day, when we come in from recess, what are the procedures and expectations? And then what are we doing at the end of the day, all the way up through our dismissal, and what does that look like? So once I have that outlined, then I can go through and put in all of those more specific areas. Okay, so next, we can't just tell the students what we expect of them. We need to constantly teach and practice these routines with our students. So explicitly teach that routine from day one, minute one. If you don't set that up from the very first day in minutes, it's going to make the rest of the school year much more difficult. It's hard to get them back once they're already gone. So if you set that up from day one, it makes your school year much more seamless. Again, not perfect, but helps. Model the behavior you expect. So I teach upper elementary students, they can model. What does this look like, sound like? What does it not look like and sound like? Okay, so just having them take ownership of showing what do these things look like within the classroom or within the building. And make sure that you break down maybe bigger complex items into smaller tasks. Give your students plenty of opportunity to practice these routines and procedures, especially in the first couple weeks of school. The more you practice after a long summer break, the easier it's going to make for your school year. So for example, if you are introducing a routine for transitioning between activities, walk the students through the process step by step. Don't just say, okay, go back to your seats. They're not ready for that. Not ready for that. Okay, so let's say maybe you have everything outlined on the board. Here are the items that you need. Here's the tasks that you're going to be working on. Who can show me the quietest way you can do this? Or when I clap twice, then you dismiss and get started right away. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that you can come up with how to transition, but show them what does it look like. When you are sitting and working with a partner, what does that look like? When you are sitting and working with a group, what does that look like? When you're sitting and working independently, what does that look like? The more you teach those routines and expectations, the more that they pick up on, the easier it makes the school year go. Now, if you need more tips on classroom management, make sure to go back and check out previous videos on this topic. I've got some great strategies that can complement what we're discussing today. So finish watching this, go back and watch some of those previous videos. Now, one size does not fit all when it comes to classroom routines and procedures. You have to be willing to be flexible and adapt to meet the needs of your students. And it doesn't mean that you just throw everything out the window. They still need that routine and expectation to follow, but some classes are a little more capable of certain things than other classes. So think about with your students. So if you are holding morning meetings, have that discussion with them. What is working? What is not? Don't be afraid to tweak your routines. What works for one group of students may not work for another group of students, and that's okay. We just have to make those adjustments throughout the school year. And the goal is to create that system that really supports the learning and minimizes disruptions within the classroom. Again, there's no such thing as a perfect classroom. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as perfect behavior. They're children. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna make poor choices at times. It's just about making sure that we're following those routines and expectations to make it more of a safe and understanding learning environment. If you've ever had to adjust to a routine mid-year, click that like button down below. It's all about finding what works best for you and your students. Okay, so let's talk about the last part, which is monitoring and effectively reinforcing those routines on a regular basis. So consistency is key. If you are not consistent, it's all going to fall apart. So be vigilant about monitoring your student behavior and enforcing those established routines. You can be gentle and provide reminders when necessary. Praise students who are following those routines correctly. Use visual cues or reminders as needed. You could have classroom posters. You could do a signal with a noise. Like I have a doorbell that I use in the classroom that helps with routines and procedures. Anything that works for you and your students. One thing that I like to do at the beginning of the year is when I'm having students work independently, I'm moving around a lot more than I do later in the year when they're working independently. And that's because at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to build those relationships with them. I'm watching to make sure that those routines are being followed. If they're not being followed, then that's the time that I can adjust and fix anything that's not working. If I'm just sitting back and not doing anything or on my computer things, I'm not saying I don't ever do that. But at the beginning of the year, I don't do that as much with the students because they need to see, here, I'm watching and monitoring what you're doing to make sure that you're following those routines and procedures of what we've set forth. If you need some additional guidance on back to school planning or creating those classroom routines for classroom management, I do have a free guide listed below that you're welcome to go and check out. Lots of additional tips and ways to plan for your school year to make it a success. So to wrap up, our effective classroom routines and procedures are that essential component for a positive classroom environment, a productive classroom environment. We need those in order to see success. By designing, teaching, adjusting, and of course, reinforcing those routines and procedures, you can set your classroom up for success, and it's going to make your teaching life a whole lot easier. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, in the comments below, share with us what your favorite classroom routine is, and let's continue to learn from each other. Remember, teaching is a journey, and we're all in this together. Until next time, I love this journey for you.